Let's talk about the guessing penalty. The current version of the SAT has a reputation for penalizing students for getting answers incorrect, and that is a correct reputation. It's accurate because that's exactly what it does. But before we talk about the guessing penalty, there's something everyone should know. Every standardized test, or almost every standardized test, has something called a raw score. SCORE, sorry about that. So the raw score is determined by taking the number of questions you answered correctly, the number of questions you omitted, and then the number of questions you marked incorrectly. And so there's some number that that you'll have for each one of these. And different exams may treat these things differently. Sometimes exams don't care whether you got something wrong or whether you omitted something. Some exams do, like the current version of the SAT. And this raw score is converted into a scaled score. A scaled score, and that scaled score is a score that is reported to you. So the score that's out of 200 to 800 is a scaled score that's converted from the raw score. So the penalty that's assigned on the current version of the SAT is assigned at the raw score level, and this is how it's going to affect your score. So I kind of want to walk you through this just so you have an idea of what's going on. So almost every standardized test has a raw score component and a scaled score component, but we'll talk about the SAT specifically. So on the SAT, whether it's the current SAT or the new SAT, when you start taking the exam, you start with 0 points, which means you have nothing. It's a blank slate that you're starting with. For every question that you answer correctly, so let's say you mark A for the answer, that was the right answer, you'll get 1 raw point for each correct answer. That's true on both exams. Let's suppose you omit a question on these exams. You get 0 points. You don't get any points. You don't lose any points. I guess you can call it a no contest. So you get 0 points. The difference is when you mark a question incorrectly. So let's say you guessed A and the answer was actually B. On the current version of the SAT, not only do you not get the points, but you also lose 1/4 of a point for each incorrect answer. So that's how the current SAT works. On the new SAT, you don't lose any points for guessing. So if you marked A for the answer and B was the answer, it treats it as if you omitted the question altogether. So you don't lose any points for an incorrect answer. So theoretically, if you got enough questions, if you answered enough questions incorrectly on the current version of the SAT, you can end up with a negative raw score. And that's completely possible. It's highly unlikely, even with random guessing, but it is possible that you can get a negative raw score. And that'll obviously convert to the lowest scale score, which would be around that 200 point mark. But what you should understand in terms of the guessing penalty is that it's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing that this is happening. What you should understand is that every single question on the new SAT should be answered without any hesitation. So even if you're not able to get an answer for a question on the new SAT, you should always guess. If you go through all the questions, you've answered everything you possibly can, and you're running out of time, for every question that you did not get to, that you couldn't figure out, you couldn't solve, or you couldn't determine what the right answer was, just guess, because you don't lose anything if you get it wrong. There's no chance of you losing points for getting it wrong. So you should always guess on the current version of the SAT, which is good because you can always score extra points. Is this an advantage? Not necessarily, because remember, you're guessing and you have the chance of getting things right, but so does everyone else. So it's an advantage for everyone, which means it's really an advantage for no one. So in this case, you just have to make sure you guess on everything to make sure you get it right. I hope that clarifies everything on the guessing penalty.